are live at the Townie Meeting 2016. What is this, Ryan? Our 14th annual. Ryan's, my son Ryan's the podcast guy. He's 22. So you've been coming here since you were, my gosh, 8 years old?
Yes.
Oh my God. And I drug you to all the Rich Maddow TBSC deals, I think when you were like, I can remember taking you on stage when you were a 1-year-old. But we're here with John Schwartz, who's not only a dentist, but a master ceramist.
Yes.
And you were telling me last night at the party about your new company, your new product. What are you passionate about? Tell everybody what's got you all excited.
Thank you, Howard. We have a new company called Cenotes. It's
Cenotes.
That's just a little.
What's the web? Is that a website?
Yeah. Well, the website is www.centricnotes.com.
www.centricnotes.com. Centricnotes.com.
Yes. Centric Notes is we created a product called Cenotes, and what it is, it's a note generation instrument, and it's designed for the iPad. So I brought a copy of it here. You open it up on the iPad, and in essence, it's going to write the medical note for you. Unlike template writing, where you have to cut and paste and put things in, this creates a note, a very detailed, comprehensive note based on your decisions that you did throughout your procedures. It writes a detailed note in about 3 minutes. So, for example, for many people, if they're handwriting notes, which most dental offices are still handwriting notes, believe it or not, to the tune of about 75%. And people are attempting to go paperless. And the ones that are paperless, they're either using template writing or they're actually typing in everything. And what we found with this device, with this instrument, we can create a detailed note chair side in about 3 minutes, so you can complete it as the patient's leaving. What I generally do in my practice is for difficult cases, I will write the note. For milder, more normal cases, my assistants will write the note and I just have to check it.
And what made you get into this? Is this more illegal CYA, cover your ass, or?
Yeah, in some ways, yes. You know, the instances of any dentist being sued, the statistics show about 3 to 5 times throughout your career. So 30-year career, about 3 or 5 times. And I'll tell you, I have been sued. Fortunately, I've won every one. But you know, it's like having a heart attack. You don't want it again. You know, so. With that being said, that was one of the impetuses to write this. Also, you know, the story goes, my hygienist one day writing beautiful notes, you know, handwritten 5 or 6 years ago, and it was Christmas time. So, you know, Christmas time, normally we take off the week between Christmas and New Year's, so you're condensing an entire month into 3 weeks. And we were exhausted at the end of that time. It was a good month for us, and she said, you know, Johnny, is there any way that we can, a more simple way to write really good notes? It's like, let me think about it. So I actually thought about it while on our break and came up with a keynote presentation to describe what would happen. And I have a friend who has a master's degree in IT, and I approached him with it and said, is this a doable project? And he said, absolutely. So we started that. We built a beta template just to see how it would work, and it actually worked beautifully. It worked so beautifully that we created it for the hygiene department for just like cleanings, and it worked so well that we said, well, we need to write it for dentistry altogether. And we thought it would take us about 6 to 9 months to complete. It took us 4 years. We wound up writing about 400,000 lines of code, over 600 pages of dental notes, and we created Cenotes from it.
Wow, Cenotes. And where does the name Cenotes come from?
Cenotes is just...
It's called Centric Notes, so C is for centric,
yeah, C
like
is for
centric occlusion?
Yeah. It's centric is a name that's very visceral to dentistry. We have centric occlusion, centric relation occlusion, you know, and it goes on and on. So it's a name that people know. Plus, what we create here is a note that is essentially, we try to get to the 90 percentile of what you need to create a beautiful, complete note. There are going to be instances where you have to put in unexpected incidences that happen. You know, you write that in. But we try to get that. So we try to get that centric, that very integral part of the note that you're going to be using all the time, and that's why we named it Centric Notes.
Wow, now you're in New Orleans.
I'm in New Orleans.
And you've been practicing how many years?
30 years. Yeah.
30 years you've been practicing New Orleans, and how's that going?
It's going well.
Did you not to bring up anything bad, but did Katrina impact you?
Katrina impacted the city big time, and
what year was that?
2005.
2005.
Yeah, but the city has really come back stronger since that time. We had the city.
So 11 years later, it's back to before it was.
Absolutely, back and doing well and thriving. A lot of good industries have come in. Movie industries are big here in New Orleans now, and of course, oil and gas is always big. But just and the city for tourism is very big.
So when oil and gas, it was $100 a barrel last year, and now it's down to what, 30?
Yes.
What is it at now?
Well, it is affecting not so much New Orleans, but the outlying areas, smaller cities like Lafayette, Baton Rouge. It is affecting them pretty good. Hopefully, we'll get back on track.
Would you say Louisiana is a pretty oil-based economy?
It was 20, 30 years ago. Definitely, it's more modified now.
It's diversified.
Yeah.
And you also were a dentist, and then you were a dentist first. And then you became a master ceramist.
Yes, I became a master ceramist.
I've never met any dentist that did that. Tell me what that's all about.
There are only a few of us in the country, and I could name them to you. Rob Winter, Ed McLaren. Who else? Some names are skipping me, but.
And where? How do you spell McLaren? MCCL.
Yeah, say CLAREN.
And where's Winter and McLaren? And
in California.
They're both in California.
Yeah.
And so what?
Actually, word is Ed may be coming to New Orleans to be on practice at LSU. Which I'm in the prosthodontic department at LSU, and to have him would be awesome if he came. But
well, tell us how this happens on your journey. 150,000 dentists, and there's three of you guys that after becoming a dentist became a master ceramist. Yeah. Where did that come from?
Well, it's a passion, is what it is. When I first started out in dentistry, I created an environment where it was totally cosmetic. Early on, 1986. Yeah. But I was using some very expensive labs at the time from LA, Hollywood, and in New York City. And every time I got a case back, it was like something's not right about it. And back then there weren't textbooks back then. It was you go to lectures, you listen, you kind of talk to people and see what's happening. But there was always something a little missing behind a case, and I wanted to make it better and better. So finally, after 2 years of doing this, and I was spending back in 1986, I was spending $375 a unit for a crown or veneer, which today would be maybe $1,300, $1,400, and that's what I was using as my base to get a fine product to the people in New Orleans. And I was always a little frustrated because it's not that they weren't producing a good product. I didn't know how to translate the information I was seeing into making the product better. Communication error. So I finally decided the only way to learn is to actually start stacking porcelain. So I immersed myself in it. As I immersed myself in it, I discovered I absolutely loved it. So I never stopped. So from 1989 to 1995, I studied with the masters, studied all their techniques, both Japanese and European. And as it turned out, by about 95, I published my first paper in Dentistry Today. And from there, it took off. I've been lecturing around the country for years and on cosmetic and aesthetic dentistry. Wrote some manuals concerning aesthetic techniques. Been published in Dentistry Today, Practical Periodontics and Aesthetic Dentistry, DPR, you name it. I've been there. So
does that mean someday you'll grace Dental Town with an online CE course on it?
Absolutely.
I would love that. We're the cell phone changed everything. So the website, we started online CE in 2004, and now it's on the iPad. But we put up 350 courses. They've been viewed over 500, over 500,000 times.
Yep,
but what's neat about that is so many of our homies are in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and they'll never have the money. Just to fly here to hear you speak would be 2 months' wages.
Right.
So you put that course up there, they'll be watching this in Zimbabwe and Mozambique and Nepal.
I think it's wonderful.
So let's talk about that. We graduated the same time. You 86, I was 87. There were 15,000 labs when I got out of school, when we got out of school, and now there's not even 7,000. We lost half the labs in the United States. What is your thinking on that? I mean, why did America? Because these young kids are coming out now, they don't realize there's used to be twice as many labs 30 years ago. Why did half the labs go away, and what does the lab industry look like today, and where do you think it's headed?
Well, it was a much more local environment back then. It was a mom and pop type environment where the dentist knew the ceramist on a personal basis. They fished together, they hunted together, and the ceramist and lab tech and their company was an integral part of whatever dental practices they associated with, or whatever businesses they had. Then, as of course, internet digitization comes a part of dentistry and dental technology. You get people who did not want to keep up, and they either wind up retiring or got absorbed or got bought up by other companies, and so there's this massive integration to become bigger. These local labs were being bought up by larger companies, and of course, your big companies like Glidewell, and they really made a presence because the price point became lower, and dentists will gravitate towards that. There's there's no doubt. So with that being said, you still have your niche type dental studios today that still survive, where they are charging a lot of money for detailed restorations, and then you have your larger places that your micro dentals, your dental towns. Your Glidewells. And what they will do is, they provide a niche, and even China, provides a niche a price point that's hard to compete with. So that's what I think is happening. As things go down the road or in the future, I foresee it only getting smaller as far as the number of labs. The labs will be getting larger. With digitization today, you really don't have to take a wet impression anymore. You can digitize it. Then that goes to have a model made, and also with CEREC and D4D, making crowns in a couple hours definitely has a large impact on the ceramists and dental laboratories also.
So you're a master ceramist. So do you have CAD CAM? Do you use CAD CAM?
I do have CAD CAM.
What do you use?
I use the D4D instrument.
The D4D out of Dallas, Texas, which got bought by Plan Mecca out of Helsinki, Finland, right?
Right, yeah. And, with regards to that, I like the instrument. I've been using it for, 6-7 years now, probably 7. And I'll tell you where it impacted me. As a sole practitioner in the ceramic field, I did all the lab work myself, cutting stone models, pinning, pouring, everything, wax ups, all that. I did it for years like that. And it limited, really, my clinical production suffered because of it, but I raised my prices so I could afford to do this. It's a different way of practicing dentistry, and you have to really be in love with doing this type of work to do it, because it is time consuming. I would spend, for example, on a makeover case, I would spend 20 hours on it in the course of 2 weeks, on and off to get it beautiful for the patient's presentation, and then spend 4 hours tweaking it in the patient's mouth, looking at it, making sure it's just right, go upstairs, bake it some more to get it just right. But with digitization, what used to take me, if I took a single crown, used to take me about 4 hours of lab work to do a single crown. Today, I design it, I take an impression, I design it in 20 minutes, I mill it in 20 minutes, I finish it in 20 minutes, and in the back of the mouth, it's done. So I will do same-day crowns all the time for patients. When it comes to anterior work, it's never a same day, because to me, it takes the artistry to really build cases out in that dimension. So
let's talk about that for a minute. Obviously, posterior molar on a guy like me, monolithic crown, convenience, same day, nice. But on an attractive person, a good-looking woman, high lip line, one of her upper incisors, would you CAD CAM that at a monolithic block, or would you say that's got to be stacked by a master ceramist, feldspathic porcelain?
What I will do for anything anterior, it's a layered environment, is what I consider it. So I'm going to layer porcelain. I will build it out of a monolithic block. It'll have a cutback in it that I created, so I can immediately stain it, stack porcelain, create it, make it look beautiful.
So when you say layered, is that always feldspathic on something, on like a monolithic block? When you're layering, is that always a feldspathic that you're layering on?
My favorite block to work with is lithium disilicate, the Emax.
Emax,
yeah,
Ivoclar.
And when it comes to lithium disilicate, the Ivoclar generally tells me that I have a great relationship with them. I've been working with them for 20 years now, on the podium and off the podium. But I did some of the original strength tests on lithium disilicate, and I will tell you, going back 98 and 2000, we did some major strength tests, and they candidly asked me, "What do you think about the material?" I said, "I will tell you that my all ceramic crowns, I went from having a fracture rate of 3 to 4% per year, which is what you expected back then in 1998 and 99, 2000. And then in 1 year, when I started using lithium disilicate, it went down to about 0.6%. So the change in 3%, almost 2.5%, 3%, was remarkable. It's like, that's a game changer. And so I went and did some strength tests, and we found out essentially what we had to do to make these restorations. I can get, from a particular prep technique posteriorly, I can get the strength of lithium disilicate to be up to 450 megapascals of strength, which is, they advertise it's about 360, 350, which is what a natural tooth is. And so I can get up to 450, even 500 sometimes, based on some techniques that we integrate just in prepping. So with that being said, you can do these monolithic crowns back there, and you're looking at a 15-year restoration. It's not going to break. Very seldom do they break.
So do you think it'll be a game changer? The biggest North American company, Dentsply, just merged with the biggest European company, Cerona, Dentsply Cerona. Right now, Ivoclar out of Liechtenstein, the Emax has probably got, 90% of the CAD-CAM market?
Yeah.
Do you think that will change now that Cerona married Dentsply? Because Dentsply has a block.
Yeah. I don't know, and I don't know what is. I can't look in the future for Ivoclar as to what's going to happen. I do know that when you see how metrics are changing, it seems like they're coming, since they came up with a more translucent zirconia, like a pre-tau and a Cubex and those names. You're going to see a lot more of that being prepped posteriorly. Simply because it's not so much in the back of the mouth that the aesthetics matter. But I still say for anterior works, there's going to be only one solution, and for me, it's lithium disilicate. And
do you think these kids out there are young, they're coming out of school, $300,000 in debt, and it kind of makes them nervous to go invest $150,000 in a CAD-CAM, $100,000 in a CVCT, $80,000 laser. Some of these lasers are $110,000. Do you think that if they were coming out of school, when they've been out 30 years like you and me, will it all be digital, or will there still be an improgram impression in 30 years from now?
That's a great question. I don't know. It depends. As things progress, back by then we might even be we may not even be doing ceramic anymore. We may be printing crowns that you can integrate the color into them, or not even something further. You may be genetically creating a tooth and implanting it. 30 years from now, a lot's going to happen. It's going to be.
They better learn how to genetically grow hair before they genetically grow teeth. I want your hair before we start growing teeth for our patients. That would be the first party. Well, do you think do you think CAD-CAM is really more single tooth dentistry? Because when I talk to prosthodontists, they say, I'm usually doing arches. I don't got time to scan all that and all that stuff. Do you think CAD-CAM is single tooth dentistry as opposed to a prosthodontist doing full mouth restorations?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if I'm doing a full arch fixed detachable hybrid out of zirconia, that is CAD-CAM milled, which I design and send it off, and they mill it and bring it back to me.
So then you're optically scanning.
Yes.
And then sending that file through the emailing it or through the internet?
File. Yes, yeah.
Do you email that, or is it just an internet connection?
It depends on who you work with.
Yeah.
Some companies will actually grab it right off your computer. Other companies ask that you send it through, company like Bright Squid or something like that.
What percent of the? I want to ask this. So it's hard to get numbers, but I think most people say about 14,000 dental offices in America have CAD/CAM.
Yeah.
What percent do you think are using it as they bought it? What percent do you think are not using it? And what percent do you think now pretty much just use the scanning part and just send the scan to the lab?
Those
Because I have best friends in my zip code that do all three of those. I mean, I got guys that love it. I got guys that use it to hang their jacket on.
Exactly.
And I got other guys that now they just scan and then zip it to the lab.
Right.
And then one guy, my buddy Tom Mattern, he does all the scans. Then he has a lab person
in his
office once a week.
Absolutely.
So he's not even doing same day dentistry with it. And this lady comes in every Wednesday and mills out all the crowns.
Yeah. There's no doubt that CAD/CAM is going to save anyone time, and each dentist is going to have to determine how they want to use it. But if they bought an expensive instrument, I mean, I would encourage them to either hire somebody to make the crowns for them in-house, because they'd save a lot of money doing that, or but don't hang your coat on it. If you have it, sell it, or but if you bought it, definitely use it. Find a way to integrate it, whether you're going to be doing the restorations like I do, or whether you're going to hire or have train one of your assistants to do it, to become a CAD/CAM operator.
Or give the milling part to your lab man, scan it, and then have him mill it.
Yes, you could. Or go in halves and let them buy the milling part, and you buy the scanner. I tell you, the optical scanners are really off the charts right now.
Which ones do you like?
The E4D is an awesome product. That's the one I know best. And Trios is actually a very good product too, and it's getting a lot of.
And Trios, where are they out of?
They are associated with 3Shape, and I think
is that Denmark or it's Scandinavia?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, not quite sure where.
Yeah,
but they're getting in the CAD/CAM and dental world. 3Shape is getting a significant market share right now.
And your E4D, that's Scandinavian too. That's Finland. Yeah. It's it definitely looks like the trend's all going towards digital.
Yeah.
But man, sometimes it's just so nice just to take an emperor gum and be.
Yeah, but you still, like I said, anteriorly, you will always need an artist, ceramist there that's capable of delivering that product. And what I teach from the podium is, how do you take this substructure, this block? What do you do with it? What color do you choose? What opacity level are you choosing for a location? And how are you going to bring this to fruition so it becomes a beautiful composition for somebody? Particularly veneers, or matching a single central. I've done videos on that before, and all that's just critical. But you need to. It takes, each dentist, if they are interested in doing this, because I'll tell you, if a general dentist knows nothing about A1, A2, A3 shade formations, and they really should refer a single central out to someone who does them all the time. They really should, because they're going to struggle with it. They're not going to match it. They're going to miss the boat. They're going to get frustrated. The laboratory's going to get frustrated. So, most masters, ceramists that I know that aren't dentists, like Olivier Trick, Mike Ballerina, these guys, Mike's in my hometown, patients come to him. If he's doing single centrals or a couple of centrals, patients come to him from wherever they are, and he works on them in a dental chair in his office and makes sure everything's right, sends it back, lets the dentist put it in.
Hey, you and I have seen a lot of companies come out over the years that actually took a picture of the front tooth. They color mapped it.
Right.
And then you send it to the lab. Did any of those ever really work or get traction? Or
they work quite well, is what they do. However, the learning curve and the barrier to entry becomes, what is the how should I say this? How do you interpret it? What the computer is seeing. And like for me, if I look at a single central, I will tell you, call this a computer. From my intelligence of what I know, I can look at it and immediately know how to make it. And most ceramists that are masters will be able to do that. They really don't need it. But for the dentist to say, I don't quite know what I'm looking at, that is a great adjunct to give to the ceramist. But he also has to go along and say, this is what I'm seeing. And the ceramist needs to learn how to interpret it. Jerry Sheest many years ago did a very great test. And he sent to, at the time he was using Oshima. I don't know if he still uses Oshima in Japan. So you're looking at 3 weeks there just sending the case and sending it back. But he said he would send one with a computer oriented design and one that he would just do himself. And he said, Johnny, I got to tell you, the computer design was winning. And so, which is interesting, because he was learning something that the computer does know something, but it's how you interpret it. And that's where the learning curve comes in. The ceramist and the dentist must get together and say, okay, when we see this, how are we going to build it? And so that's where it becomes a partnership with us.
I want to talk about light. When I designed my dental office, I put a full window in each of the 8 operatories, but sometimes it's dark in the early morning winter. Sometimes you're there late at night. Right. There was people that were putting color-corrected neon tubes that had the full spectrum of the sunlight. Yep. What do you think about light? If you just have the neon tube that you buy at Costco, right. Is that really a fair shade as opposed to outside windows? Do you have full spectrum light bulbs in your office? What do you think about all that?
I'll tell you what I have. I have half and half. I have some tubes in, because I have fluorescent lighting also, some tubes in, and I do half and half color corrected, half not. And then I'll mix them. And the reason is I want to blend, but really suffice to say, when you create a crown, that crown has to interact in all lights. Whether you're on the beach, the light's going to be reflected primarily. If you're in dark light gets absorbed. And that crown has to be able to match in all lights, so including disco lights, blue lights, whatever.
Oh, that is
got to happen. So what we do is I'm not so much making a match as I am making a shade that's going to blend as a shade blending, because you want that that crown to interact in all lights, so it works with what its neighbors are.
I had a few wow moments last night at the Townie meeting, because we were at that party and it was like a dark bar disco deal, whatever, and you would be talking to someone that you knew well, but you didn't realize that their first bicuspid was a PFM. But last night you could tell from 10 feet away. You're just sitting there like, wow, look at that thing. I mean, it just sticks out. Yeah. It just massively sticks out. Yeah. So what do you think about? Do you think the market? What's the bigger market? I'm thinking the bigger market is it's trending towards. It's gonna be optical scanning and send it to a lab. Yeah. I don't think. How does your dental assistant compete with a lab person when the lab person's been making, half a dozen crowns a day for 10, 20 years, and your assistant's gone to 3 courses? Right. And then if the dentist starts milling it all on himself, he just graduated from dental school as a dentist, paid $150,000 for a machine, and demoted him to a lab pay structure. Right. Does any of that make sense? I mean,
it does make sense.
Where do you think it's going?
Well, it depends on, some people can be trained quickly. Some assistants might have an artistic background. It's a case-by-case basis, and it depends on what kind of quality the dentist is looking for. If he has really high standards and he wants a high-quality restoration, he's probably going to have to go to a lab to get it. I don't see that going away. It just depends on what your price point is. That's the other thing. Dentists, when I lecture, dentists always ask me, well, how much do you charge for this? And my answer is, how much do you want to pay? Because what is your price point? If your price point is $175, let's say, and I can give you a half a dozen labs that are going to give you great quality work for $175 that might be equal to other labs at $350. And I can give you 6 labs in the United States where they charge $300 a crown and they give you $600 work. And I can also do just the opposite. So you have to find that right one. I know one lab for many years, they were so popular because of their price point, because of what they could the service that they provided and delivered. They didn't even have a Yellow Page ad. In fact, their phone was unlisted. You had to find them. When you find them, they interviewed you to see if they wanted to work with you. And so there are those people out there that can just give you, it can help your practice skyrocket. But if you can't buy a $300 crown and sell it to a patient for $800, you can't. You're You just can't.
And then a lot of that has to do with the patient. I remember one time I did a upper 10 veneer case on a lady, and I sent it to one of the best lab guys ever up in Idaho. I paid like $350 a unit. He took like Matt. It takes like 3 months to get him back or whatever. And oh my God, they were just completely the most amazing thing in the world.
He is amazing.
And she hated him and cried and unbelievable. Cut every one of them off, sent it to Glidewell, made 10 chiclets that looked like piano keys, and she was the happiest woman on earth. And so you know,
sometimes it can be hit or miss. And
I mean, you got to know what she's thinking.
Yes.
And this lady was like a 65-year-old lady from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I should have, and you know, I was a young kid and I didn't see the inch-long fingernails and the big cosmetic jewelry, and I didn't realize that her whole look was fake a mile away. Yeah. And she wanted the big chiclet, kind of like breast augmentation. You know, some people get the crazy size,
right?
And some people are you know.
Yes, you do have to pay attention to that, and interview process is part of it. You know, as a part of I always say, as a master ceramist, I have to satisfy three people. I have to satisfy the person that's looking in the mirror. I have to satisfy the photograph, and I have to satisfy myself. Because if I don't like it, I have to. Every time you do a makeover, that makeover is a billboard for your practice. And if somebody likes it, there is no better way. Somebody's drinking coffee and talking to a patient, saying, "Wow, man, you look great, and your smile looks great. What did what happened? Whether they say bleaching or they say go see my doctor, Dr. Schwartz, that's going to be a big billboards are a way to grow a practice."
And you also said something very important. I noticed the trend's growing fast. As you said, it's got to look good in the camera.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the camera really doesn't tell lies, and it's factual information. When you see it, and if you see, an outline form that's off, we have to make sure. I mean, sometimes first impression is like, "Hey, that looks great. It looks really good," and then you take a picture of it, and it's like, "Wow, look." The gingival outline form's a little higher on that lateral than the central, and the shape of this might be a little bit off. And you can, if you take photographs as you go along constantly, you can learn and say, this is how, if we tweak this, it'll look a lot better.
But I'm noticing that the consumer mastery from Google. I mean, we're old school. We went to college 8 years and became a dentist. They just get on Google for 15 minutes and now they're a dentist.
Right.
And it seems like the people that are on their website have the most of their own work before and after are getting the business.
Right.
And the consumer's getting sophisticated, and they'll go to some website and it's got a picture of you and talks about you're married and have 3 dogs and a cat.
Right.
And you're a PPO practice, and then the girl right next to you who's got like 50 before and after cases of her gum surgeries and correcting gummy smiles and this and that, and now she's like a cash practice and just crushing it. I mean, photo documentation on your website in this world where
plays a part.
Everybody has an iPhone, and you search New Orleans and dentists, and they're going to serve you up every one of them, and they just start flipping through those deals.
Yeah. That's why word of mouth and photography, you have to photograph your cases.
I think actually a dental camera might be the highest return on investment of any technology.
I would agree with you.
Of any technology you can buy.
Even if you don't use a scanner or intraoral scanner or anything like that, you can still use that for the photography and the camera for the diagnostic purposes. You take a set of. I generally take a set of about 8, 10, about 12 pictures to diagnose a patient, and I show them those pictures. I show them on my computer, and when we do a consultation, they see them up front, and they're as big as a computer screen.
And what software are you using?
For what? For
your dental office software. I mean for your photography software.
Oh, I just use I use Mac, so it's just iPhoto.
iPhoto.
Yeah. Take the
now,
photo.
does that store in your chart or your practice management chart?
No.
You just keep that separately under the patient's name?
Yeah. Patient's name, file created, and
now does your Cenotes, does that separately or how does that interface?
Cenotes is separate. It's like I said, it's for note generation. We don't take photographs because in your practice management software there are places to bring that in. With Cenotes, we create this detailed medical note in a short amount of time, very efficiently, and things that you would not normally think of. we're going to take that and we're going to, two ways to bring it in. You can bring it in by direct, like Dropbox or something, but the best way to do it right now is with email. You just email it to support.doctor.com or info, whatever email you have, and that way you get it on the desktop of the computer system, and you basically drag and drop it just like you would a photo into the patient's file. And if you create a file that's called treatment notes, you can take this PDF that's interactive, and to show you the interaction, it's remarkable what it's capable of doing, because you have interactive documents that are just like look at a glance and see, for example, in root canal therapy, working length, coronal reference point, master apical file. It all comes up in one little chart. You can't type that in, and there's no template for it, but it's there in Cenotes. And you can take that, and when you say go to fill a root canal, you pop up and bring up that chart. You just see it real quick. It's right there on the screen. So it integrates well. It's encrypted information, so you do have to use a password once you send it through the email. You do have to unencrypt it and get it into this practice management software. Whatever you use, Dentrix, EagleSoft, SoftDent, Open Dental, it gets into all of them.
Which one do you use?
I use Mac Practice.
Mac Practice?
Yeah.
Out of Nebraska?
Out of Nebraska, yeah.
Wow, you're just a big Mac fan.
You know, to tell you the truth, I had my own software for many years that I created. And
Your own practice management system that you wrote yourself?
yes, for many years.
Wow.
I gave it up in around 2000, I think, somewhere around there, or maybe 2003.
Yeah.
But you know, regardless, it worked well for me. But it was limited to what it could do at the time.
How's Mac Practice treating you?
It has its moments. You know, there's some things it does well and the things that it doesn't do well with regard. And I don't mean to bash a practice management software, but you know, the way practice management softwares work is where they are limited, I should say, is where Cenotes kind of picks up the part. If you created a baseline dental record, what I call BDR, of 21 subsets, which is what I brought here, this is what you want, what any dentist wants in a chart. It's what, when we had a paper chart in the 70s and 80s, this is what we used. It was a baseline dental record, 21 supersets of what you would expect in a chart. Registration, you know, things like that, scheduling, ledger, all that kind of thing. That's where accounting-based information is what practice management software does best. But where they begin to fall off a little bit is in patient-centered operations, where it involves a clinical interface. Now, charting, they've all stepped up and created wonderful charting modules. And so when it comes to charting, you don't have to worry about that. But when it comes to things like the clinical note, oh, we have a space for it here, just type it in. It's like, we don't have time to type in a nice note. You know, we're bustling creating production, and I'm not going to spend an hour a day at the end of the day writing notes. I know I get home and see my family. So that's one of the emphasis for creating Cenotes, is that we can create this detailed note that every dentist wants. So, and I'll tell you another great thing about Cenotes is your insurance reimbursement. When you send your code, you send the note along with it. They will have no question. They can't refuse your reimbursement if they read the Cenote, because it's just that detailed. And you know, they always say, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. There's a practice using Cenotes right now. They hopped on board because they're a Medicaid type practice. They lost $3,000, and this is another thing on the rise. Medicare and Medicaid and insurance companies are auditing dentist books that are in the PPOs and et cetera, and saying, oh, you didn't do this, this was not qualified for payment, and they're asking for their money back. And this particular dental practice lost $3,000 in a week because Medicare, or Medicaid, whatever which one it was, came back and said, we overpaid you. You need to pay me $3,000. It's like, dentists, you know, where they operate in a big, busy business, $3,000, it's like, are you kidding me? Now they got to go prove their case, you know? And it's like, with Cenotes, you have no doubt. So reimbursement will go up and ensure that you keep it if they audit you. And also, who wants the headache of being sued? And you know, with template writing, one of the difficulties with template writing, if a attorney, if you're in litigation and attorney sees a well typewritten note, they're going to ask you, first question they ask you, how do you write your notes? And they'll say, oh, we use these templates. Well, immediately your credibility goes out the window, because did you actually do that, or did you just cut and paste And there's a lot of ancillary information that you may not have done. So then they got to question line by line what you did, and then you have to respond to it. So with this, the decisions are made based on what you did. And a typical note, like for a crown prep, at the meeting, most people want to see root canals, crowns, that kind of thing. A crown prep for Cenotes is about a page and a half long, the detail in it. But at the top, it'll tell you crown prep, impression, temporary, if that's what you did. And so it gives you generalities up top. If you want to read the detail, you can read the detail. From anesthesia, post-op instructions, everything. We have it all. The other great thing about Cenotes is for every procedure, consultation and consent forms are integrated. So you can, how many people, if you're going to write your notes about a consultation, you're going to write consultation today, treatment plan presented. That's it. What good is that in a court of law? What we do is we go through an entire system of questions or comments to ask the patient and tell them to talk about a consultation. Treatments involved, treatments that you didn't do, what if you don't accept treatment, all that kind of thing. And then what happens is the C-note writes the consent form based on what you just talked about. And they get the opportunity to accept, reject, or edit what was written. And then they sign it, so it becomes a legal document.
Bottom line, what does C-Notes cost?
C-Notes costs we recommend an iPad per doctor, an iPad per hygienist. So it depends on the size of your practice. Of course, we don't sell you the iPad, but the subscription service, you download C-Notes for free from the iPad store and App Store. And then
So it's an app on iTunes?
Yes.
Is it go to Android or just Apple?
For right now, just for Apple.
Okay.
We think about that. We want to see how things work. The trouble with Android is multiple size systems. So you have to create it it's difficult to create these screens when you got hundreds of them, a certain size, for different systems, like for different
So you download the app.
You download the app, goes onto the App Store.
And how much does it cost to download the app?
It's free. To download the app is free. The subscription is for 2 iPads per month is $29.99.
$29.99. So
$30 a month.
So you can download a free app and then
Subscribe to us.
You subscribe via the app.
Yes, $29.99. You can't go to lunch for that much these days. And we did that intentionally because you have companies that are going to the cloud, and it's a subscription service where you may charge $500 or $600 a month or $700 a month for this. We didn't want to be a burden to the dentist. We wanted an easy point of entry that when they see how robust an app is, you think about apps and you think, it's going to fill out your registration or something simple. This thing is very complex. It's very robust. It covers everything, implant placement, all that kind of stuff. And you talk about implant placement, that's another thing I learned yesterday that coming in September, if a doctor is placing breast implants, I think it's a class 3 bio device. You have to record its serial number, date it was made, all that stuff. It has to be recorded, it's sent to a database. Same thing is happening with implants. You have to record the implant placement, the serial number, everything about it, and we have all that information in C-Notes already. Even it's going to get down to suture material. You're going to have to record the suture material, the serial number.
Which really is so
It's
insane
crazy.
Because it was the government when the silicone implants came out that first said they were causing all these diseases and bankrupted Dow Corning and all these big companies. And then 10 years later said, we're
That's
wrong,
okay.
and now they're FDA approved. And then they want us to log all this. It's like the government's track record on implants. They should go to hell in a handbasket and leave the free enterprise alone because they have been nothing but completely incompetent.
But that's what C-Notes does now. I mean, it's real easy. You basically have to write in the information there, but it does keep that information for you in case there's a recall. Bone grafting material, same thing. We have all that information that you can record. So it's a really robust program that we're trying to get to the dental market to realize that this is a great service. It's a great adjunct to your practice management software. It's going to take up some of the slack where you wish you had more of the old paper chart type mentality, and that's what we created.
So talk about your journey to LSU. You're teaching in the prosthodontic department?
Yeah, I'm on staff at the prosthodontic.
And how long you been on staff there?
Oh, probably 8 years or so.
Oh my God, you got to get us some prosto courses on Dental Town.
We can do it.
In all fairness, isn't prosthodontics the specialty? Isn't that like the smallest specialty? I mean, there's like 10,000 orthodontists, 5,000 oral surgeons, 4,000 periodontists, 4,000 endodontists, but isn't there only like 1,000 prosthodontists? Is that still a vibrant specialty? What would you say? Most of the evidence I have on these people listening, they're young. You're talking to people that are juniors, seniors in dental school, or about 5 years. What if one of them was a senior in dental school and said he asked you right now, I'm thinking about becoming a prosthodontist? What would you tell him?
I will tell you this story. First of all, I'm going to preempt something. I'm not a prosthodontist. I'm a master ceramist and a general dentist. But because of my mastery of ceramic, I am on staff in the Department of Prosthodontics at LSU. And I teach the residents there. I teach them what was not taught anywhere else, which is how to create crowns, how to look at aesthetics, and that kind of thing. So I had an associate at one time, and he approached me around, I guess, 95, 96. He says, Johnny, I want to do what you do, but I don't want to spend 6, 7, 8 years learning how to become a master ceramist. He said, what should I do? And my answer was, go be a prosthodontist. And he is. He became trained at LSU under Jerry and all those guys. And
Jerry.
Sheesh.
Mm-hmm.
When Jerry was there.
How do you spell his last name?
Chiche.
Chiche. Che.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Jerry.
When you said Jerry, the first thing I thought was Jerome Smith.
No.
The implantologist out of Lafayette.
Yeah, no, he's very good too.
Because he teaches at LSU,
yes,
doesn't he?
Yes, he does. So, but in fact, in my practice, I don't do any removable. I do, the only removable I do is fixed detachable hybrids. Now, my associate is Israel Finger, who is anybody who's learned prosthodontics in the past 30, 40 years from LSU, trained under Israel. Well, he's my associate. Isn't that great? So he does all the removable in a practice. I never see it. Now, when it comes to fixed detachable cases, which is wonderful, he sets them up, I finish them.
That was one of the worst predictions I got in dental school. And when I got an 87, that removable was just going away, and it was going to go to zero.
Right.
And now, here it is, 30 years later, 10% of Americans have zero teeth at 65,
right.
and 20% have zero teeth at 75. And they're actually doing more units of removable today than they were 30 years ago.
Because of implants. And the stats are staggering how many people are missing teeth. It's really phenomenal.
And not to sound racist or anything, but immigration is still feeding a lot of removable too.
Yes.
When I do when I do full dentures in my office, 9 times out of 10 they weren't born in the United States.
Right.
So with the United States, the United States gets 1 million immigrants a year, and a lot of these people are coming from poor countries.
Right. Exactly.
And are either missing all their teeth or about to lose all their teeth.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to if really, prosthodontics should be the gatekeepers of aesthetics, but they're not. Because they love doing dentures and things like that. But when it comes to ceramic work and veneers and crowns, they should be the gatekeepers, but they're
What do you say to some of these people who some of these marketing you see for some of these CAD CAM units where they're saying you can do 10 veneers, mill them out all chair side in a day?
You're not doing any justice to the patient.
What would you say to a guy who says, well, one of the reasons I want to buy a $150,000 CAD CAM is I'm going to do anterior veneer case. I'm going to join the AACD and mill out
my. He won't get any referrals. I don't think.
So you don't believe that you can mill out a veneer?
No, you can't mill out 10 veneers and have them look good in a day.
That's still.
The patient would be there at midnight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that and the people saying that, I agree wholeheartedly. How do you like teaching? Are you teaching like one day a week, or how do you mix the practice?
Well,
and
that's the thing.
And the teaching?
When I started Cenotes, I limited my my lectures tremendously, and it was unfortunate because here I am. I'm on the cover of Dentistry Today, and it's like people are calling me. It's like, I don't have time to go lecture for you. I'm sorry. So it was unfortunate, but.
Well, you should tell them to just see your course on Dental Town.
Right, exactly. But Cenotes took precedence, so I kind of limited my speaking. I lecture to LSU students when they ask me to. Generally, it's about 4 or 5 times a year, and teach them cosmetic aesthetics. And
that's in New Orleans?
It's in New Orleans, yeah.
Is it downtown New Orleans?
It's kind of like in what they call Mid-City, City Park
Because they got flooded during Katrina.
Yes.
Wasn't it closed down for a
Yes, it did.
while?
The school had to move to Baton Rouge temporarily. Katrina was a beast, real beast.
Would they survive that same exact if the exact same hurricane came down the exact same line today?
Better prepared. It would not have had. The flooding.
Would the dike break?
Well, that's the whole thing. The flooding occurred because of the Corps did not do their job properly. So, unfortunately, some people can say it was a perfect storm, but it's a perfect storm because things weren't done properly. And I think it's all, so to speak, the security's beefed up to where if you had a major storm, the levees would survive. Yeah.
They'd survive?
Yeah, I do think so.
Huh. So I've only got you a few more minutes. Anything else you're passionate about? Anything else you want to talk about?
That's it. The main thing is I still, after 30 years, I'm still a Master Ceramist. I still do makeovers every week, and, and to me, it will always be a passion. I don't know if I'll ever stop doing that. In fact, when my associates look at me and I'm upstairs in my laboratory doing cases, and a patient could be. There was an old cartoon many years ago, and the patient there was a dentist, and he's got a guitar in his hand. He's rocking out, and the patient's right next to him, and the quote at the bottom was, "Waiting for anesthesia can be productive time," and so he's rocking out, and I'll never forget that because. A lot of times, if I go give a inferior alveolar injection, I'm gonna give the patient 10 minutes or so, and I'm gonna head upstairs and do something in the lab real quick and come back down, let the staff talk to the patient.
What's your thoughts? A lot of kids are thinking, I want to be a cosmetic dentist. I want to be like you.
Yeah.
Should I join the AACD? Is that a good return on the investment?
I was a member of the AACD. I helped form it in Louisiana. I was the first president for 2 years in it, and it may help. I don't know the status of it. I've been out of it for quite a number of years now.
Did the politics run you out?
You got it. I wasn't going to say anything, but
oh my God! No, this is Dentistry Uncensored, but it's not just the AACD. I remember the ADA was they put aside the money and they were going to do a commercial on TV.
Yeah,
they couldn't get that thing out of committee for years, and they finally dropped it because the periodontist wanted to say this, and the oral surgeon this, so they had to kill it. And then I look on Dental Town. I mean, you can't get 2 dentists on Dental Town to agree that that we're both in Las Vegas right now. So the AACD is not unique. It's the fact that you look at the biggest organizations in the world, like Walmart. Their average employee didn't graduate from high school, but you look at law firms. Half of them are solo because by the time you got 8 years of college and you're a lawyer, they're like herding cats.
Yeah.
In fact, my son made the best prediction to me, Greg, when you say, well, how big could corporate dentistry get? Greg said, well, look at law, because they went corporate 30 years before dentists did. Right. And half of them could never stand the politics. And you see some of these dentists going to corporate, and the corporate says, well, you got to do this on perio or fluoride. And they're like, well, I don't agree.
Right. Exactly.
And they're sitting there, they're looking at all the same research and all that stuff. So highly educated people most often will never have the herd mentality.
Right. Yep.
And so that's why I look at dictatorships in like Singapore and China is highly efficient.
Right.
And democracies are highly inefficient.
Yeah.
And,
but if you look at the AACD, is it good for a dentist to get into? I don't think it can hurt. And they can experiment and find out whether it's a blessing for them to be there or whether it's not, or and they may be there.
Well, let me ask you a more pointed, because you can take cosmetic courses anywhere.
Yeah.
But if I go through all those hoops to get my fellowship in the Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, would the people of New Orleans come to me because would they recognize that, or do they just look at that like sometimes a financial investor will send me an email and he'll have like 10 initials after his name. I don't know what any of that shit
You don't
means.
know what it is.
I don't know what the real estate broker that's got a CFP.
You don't. Yeah.
So is the FACED, is that for my own ego? Or is that a business decision where the people of Louisiana said, oh, make sure if you're going to get that done, go to an FAACD?
From a networking perspective, I think it could help. Will it send you off the charts business-wise? Absolutely not. Will you get some cases from it? You may get a few cases from it, but is it going to make your whole practice? No, not at all. And when you get into if you want to be a cosmetic dentist, you have to think in those terms all day long. And it's kind of glamorous. It's like being a plastic surgeon. Hey, oh, you're a cosmetic dentist. Oh, that's fabulous. But let me tell you, the bullshit of the people who want your services sometimes is off the chart.
Okay, I'm going to ask you my final question. We both got 30 years in this game. All 7 of my restorations are gold.
Yeah.
Do you really think there's anything porcelain that would last as long as my 7 gold? Or do you think, if my criteria was, I just want it to last?
Yeah, nothing wrong with gold.
But nothing wrong with it. But is gold still the gold standard? I mean,
Yes,
do you think gold still lasts the longest?
Gold is the gold. Well, it depends on how, things you got to think about. I'll tell you, I replace gold restorations all the time. Primary reason, they're onlays or inlays, and the tooth interface has worn out. Not the gold, the tooth is worn out, so all of a sudden there's a gap between it. Yeah. And so after 30 years, it has to be replaced. So it is a standard. You'll know it'll never fracture, particularly gold crowns and onlays and things like that. But, how long will a zirconia crown last? It looks invincible. You put a hammer to it from all the ads and everything, so who knows? The great thing I have to say about zirconia is you can prep very thin with it and have it survive. So
how thin?
Generally about 7 or 8 tenths.
Not even a millimeter.
You can do it. Yeah, you can do less than a
millimeter. Zirconia, and the biggest brand of that is Bruxer out of Glidewell.
Bruxer, yeah.
Any other big brands of zirconia you like?
I don't place those restorations. Only when I have to do it.
Well, they're talking about chairside milling them now, right?
Yeah, they are.
Is E4D chairside milling zirconium?
I don't think they are yet. It does require you get a sintering furnace for most of them because you have to mill them in a soft state. Otherwise, you just burn up.
Yeah.
Burrs like crazy. So, but once you do that, you have to get a sintering oven. It's another purchase and things like that. So, I think they are looking into it, and they may be doing it. It's interesting when it comes to blocks and things like that. Ceric seems to be a little bit ahead of E4D with getting things out, like whether it's creating custom abutments on implants. Ceric came out with the milling blocks before E4D did. So,
okay. Last and final question. 3D printing. Where is that at now? How long is that going to be before How long is that going to be before people are like there's 14,000 CAD/CAM units in the USA today.
Yeah.
How long will it be before there'll be 14,000 3D printings?
I'll tell you, 3D printing, I'm really excited about it, and I'll tell you why. 5 years ago, I called the company 3D Printing, and the vice president called me. Talked on the phone. Talked to him for 45 minutes. And I said, you guys in dentistry? Yeah, we got a few people looking at it, and this was early adopters. And I said, how long does it take you to print a crown? And you know what his response was? Why do you want to print one? I said, what do you mean? He said, how many can you print at one time? 40 or 50? It's like, oh my God, you're talking about a game changer for a laboratory who's doing, instead of milling a crown at a time, no, we're going to do 40 or 50 of them at one time, each with their own little name on them, so you know whose is whose. That's phenomenal. And so that's the game changer. But right now, they're not printing porcelain. They're printing a wax, or they're printing acrylic, and then they're lost wax techniquing it, to something else. But the day that they start printing porcelain, and you can add different colors internally, I don't have to pick up a paintbrush anymore with the day that happens. And I know somebody's working on it. Probably Lee Culp.
Lee Culp, yeah. Is Lee mostly at the Dawson Center now? Is that where he's mostly?
No, Lee is he's a nomad when it comes to dentistry, because he works on a project for a while, he brings it to brilliance, and then he moves on, and he grows tired of being there and everything. Worked for Micro, brought Micro's digital department up. I worked for as a console for D4D all the time, and but now I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, and he has his own lab again, so you can send cases to him if you want, and his own teaching facility in North Carolina. And
he's in North Carolina.
He's in North Carolina.
Will you email him and CC me, and I'll do a story on that or something.
Yeah. And
he's an amazing guy.
Oh,
you know who
guy.
introduced me to him was Gary Severance.
Well, that's why he's at D4D, because Gary's still at D4D
in Dallas.
Yeah.
I think Gary Severance knows the names of all the greatest. He knows who every greatest dentist is more than anybody out there. In fact, if he was in the NFL, he'd just be a scout. That's what Gary Severance is. He's a scout of all.
He assembled
masters of dental.
Back in 95 to 98, 2000. He assembled a great, massive amount of dental intellect. He assembled together. You remember the Smilenium meetings? That's where I first met you.
Yeah,
was in a limo going to Smilenium meeting.
He knows.
By the way, can I tell this story? We're sharing a limo, and we're talking, and he starts talking about Dental Town, and it's like, this was or 2000, I guess, and it's like, what the hell's a chat room? You know, what is this stuff? And I'm thinking, he's crazy. And look where we are today. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember telling people, he goes, "Are you talking about that AOL dial-up bullshit? That ain't going anywhere."
Right.
I have to get a CD-ROM, but yeah, we should have Gary Severance on here. But will you email
I'll
Cole, because
sure.
I thought he was still in Clearwater, Florida, by Tampa, Florida, with Dawson.
Like I said, like a nomad. He went from Clearwater, then went to Dallas for a while to help D4D.
Yeah,
and from there went on to Microdental in California, and brought up their digital world. One thing, Lee is an unbelievable mastermind, and when you ask him about digitization, his mind is so clear and focused as to where dentistry should go with it. He's like a genius when it comes to
I want to podcast him very bad.
Really would.
Well, dude, thank you so much for spending an hour with me at Townie meeting in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And thank you for all that you do for dentistry, and good luck with all those students at LSU. And really, seriously, I'd love to have this on there, because when you're teaching those kids at LSU, you know, in America and Australia and Germany and all that, there's so many substitutes for great information.
Yeah.
But when you're in Tanzania and Zimbabwe and Namibia, I mean, it's the internet or nothing.
We'll create
and
one.
what I like the most about the online C course, what gives me the most passion, is not making an American dentist 1% better.
Right.
It's meeting a female dentist in Tanzania, and she burst out bawling when she realizes it's you, because everything. I'll never forget this girl told me her whole family saved up and sent her to what she thought was the best dental school in the world, in Dar al Islam. She gets out, she's practicing 2 or 3 years, and by random Google internet search finds Dental Town. And at first she was really mad because her dental school didn't teach her everything that she's learning.
Of course.
And I mean, it's such a game changer. When you're in Kenya, and all of a sudden you're a dentist one day in Kenya, and the next day you're taking, and I make all those courses free in the third world.
Wow.
And they sit there, and it just changes their whole world.
Sure, I believe it. Well, you doing something?
Get some of them LSU lectures on Dental Town. All right, buddy. Thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.